And joining us now to discuss is retired U.S. Navy Captain Brent Sadler. He's a senior research fellow for naval warfare and advanced technology at the Heritage Foundation, as well as a former Pentagon official. Brent, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you with us. I want to start, though, with some of what Carney said to Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Let's watch that first.
Mine is the first visit of a Canadian Prime Minister to China in nearly a decade. The world has changed much since that last visit. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
And Brent, your reaction to that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that world order is one that it really sees China as all that positive of a player in it. If anything, it's increasingly more dangerous and more fraught. The Germans have gone a similar path with opening up their economy, and the Chinese have largely decimated their auto industry through electric vehicles. And the Canadians are, I think, on the cusp of doing much the same, though at least they're being very judicious, at least in the first year of this deal, on electric vehicles. And Canada is really focusing on the low end of the value chain. You know, they are giving China access to high-end electrical vehicles and other types of commodities, finished products, while China opens the door to agricultural products. Certainly politically significant inside Canada, but not good in the long-term health of the economy. And I think President Trump's got a point. If you can make a deal that's smart and good for your country business-wise, that's, why not? But of course, in the background of this is how does it play out with our U.S., Mexico, Canada trade relations and free trade. So there'd be some other brakes that might be able to pump on some of the worst offenses of this that might impact American economic interest. We can talk more about the security sides, too.
I do want to get to the security sides, but first, some China experts are calling this a bad move on Canada's part, that China is not a reliable trading partner, nor a good faith one at that. And to your point, right, President Trump is saying if Carney can get a deal with China, he should do that. Is there a risk to U.S. interests here with Canada strengthening ties with the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, here's where I think President Trump might be, on the surface, seeming like not an issue, being pragmatic, understanding very well what the Chinese game plan is and their deals and the dangers that this poses for Canada, but keeping the United States isolated from that. When the Canadians find out that they're not getting a good deal, they're going to be coming right back to the United States in a very weak position, much weaker than they already are, and that strengthens the U.S. negotiation point. It's interesting to note that in some of the MOUs and some of the statements, they talk about a first year for milestones and goals to assess this new relationship between Canada and China. So I think the odds are we'll see how things go before really judging, and that's probably what's also a smart and judicious course of action by the White House.
And talk to us about the security concerns that we could be seeing with these deals.
Yeah, the agreement between police and the Canadian mounted police forces is somewhat problematic on its surface, and the details do matter. The focus is on corruption and fentanyl precursors, the same thing the United States and President Trump has been trying to make deals with the Chinese to rein in, and that's not happened yet. Then there's the issue of corruption. What is the definition of this in both capitals? And will it be a easy, ready access point for the Chinese to get information on the Chinese diaspora and perhaps even those who are political opponents of the Chinese Communist Party that live inside Canada? This has also played out not well with the Australians, also in around the 2017 timeframe, with a range of political influence peddling campaigns. And more recently, we've seen even in the United States and Europe, illegal Chinese police stations. If this is allowed, I think this part of the deal would also be very poor for security in Canada. And that one, I think, has a very strong connection to the U.S., given our border that's shared between the two countries and its very openness.
Expanding on that quickly, what would that mean for U.S. national security? Could that be compromised?
Well, let's take immigration, which has been an issue in the past. Canada has some very lax immigration standards, and so getting into Canada and then crossing over the border in the United States is very easy. Most of the attention for the last few years, rightly, has been on the southern border, very dangerous one. But the northern border with Canada has also been a point from which fentanyl and other illegal activities have also occurred, including folks with ties to terrorism. So this is one of the avenues of it. The other part of it is Chinese nationals coming in with ties to the Chinese Communist Party with espionage intent, or perhaps even more nefarious, sabotage type incidents. We've seen several Chinese nationals that have come across the southern border to illegally turn up and be arrested for trying to gain access to U.S. military bases, taking photographs of sensitive military equipment.
And Brent, on the flip side, when it comes to China's interests, what does the regime ultimately want to get out of this relationship with Canada?
Well, I think there's a near, mid, and long term. In the near term, they want to try and show that the United States is not a favored partner and to start to break apart these alliances and partnerships that the United States has, many of them longstanding, like the Canadian one. And most of that is on the surface. There's not much depth to that, and it'll be a challenge. In the midterm, it's, I think, to get some economic benefits and the bartering exchange between, say, canola oil and access for Chinese electric vehicles. But the longer term is to get access into the culture and society, and this is where that security point comes back again. If China's allowed to establish through its United Front work office a much more robust presence, right now there's only a dozen or so Confucius centers at its universities. If it's able to expand that presence, on perhaps above board, but also potentially illicitly, that gives them a lot more of an ability to influence and control future political leadership inside Canada, something that is becoming a hot button issue now in the United States.
And what are you watching for to see, where this is going and where maybe the defenses should be bolstered?
Well, first on the economic front, and I think that's going to be the canary in this economic deal, so to speak. In March, some of the first kind of test of it will come. And if the Chinese are sincere in making good on these deals, we'll see as early as March to June timeframe whether or not they are going to deliver, and if it actually is in the benefit of the Canadians. The other part of this, of course, is to see how does the U.S. Department of War rather, if it actually has any issues that they start to push to the Canadians in bilateral engagements, to include through NATO.
Well, Brent Sadler, as always, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.